Former Eskom Group CEO Andre de Ruyter could be back to face public accounts watchdog Scopa. Almost a month after his appearance, the committee wants him to return and respond to some unanswered questions. De Ruyter claimed that senior ANC politicians are benefiting from the alleged corruption at the power utility, but he refused to name them. Scopa is currently drawing up a list of other individuals to respond to his allegations of corruption and sabotage at Eskom. Let's unpack the story further. We're joined by former Scopa Chairperson Themba Godi. To give us a sense, Themba, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming on. To give us a sense of what the committee should be doing next in a context where it does feel like there's been quite a lot of he said, she said. What do you reckon?
Yeah, thanks very much. As you correctly point out, Scopa had a hearing with the Ruyter and then with the board and lastly with the Minister of Public Enterprise. And I think as the public were none the wiser about the challenges at Eskom. I'm not sure what conclusions the committee would have come up to after those three hearings, but I do think it would have been best to have all those three parties in one room at the same time so that the buck cannot be passed in the absence of the other. And I think there can be no other parties to unraveling the challenges at Eskom beyond Mr. de Ruyter, the board, and also Mr. Godi.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we saw, right? We saw the board appearing, we saw Andre de Ruyter appearing before Scopa, and then we saw the intelligence and police community, the SAPS, the Hawks, the SIU appearing before Parliament, but all separately. Certainly a lot of value to get all of them in the room so that if one organization says something that requires another response from a different arm of this conversation, that response is there instead of wasting all of this time.
No, very true. And it's a pity that, Mr. de Ruyter seems to be out of the country. And it might be very challenging to get him to come back without, his personal cooperation. I do remember that there was once a hearing where Mr. de Ruyter, the board of Eskom, and the Hawks were in one room. And de Ruyter said, I wrote letters to the police to complain about stuff. And I think for me that was an opportunity where the committee should have nailed things down. But it appears things just slipped through the fingers. And I think we are likely to have the drama, a legal conundrum, where if Mr. de Ruyter is subpoenaed and does not come, then he has a legal case hanging over his head that might have implications over whether he will ever set foot in the country or not. Because judging from his engagement with the committee, he seemed very reluctant, to tie himself down to specifics that would assist us to get a sense of who was doing what at Eskom. And in the absence of that, all other talk is just hot air.
Right. I mean, he's out of the country because he apparently fears for his life. So that's, as you say, going to be interesting to see whether we can get him back in the country or whether it will be a virtual appearance again. Outside of that, Themba, in a context where we all want answers, given that we're saddled with stage 6 load shedding, we've still got months ahead of load shedding, our economy is battered. These are discussions we've been having on a daily basis, how all of us are struggling under this load of power cuts. Is there anything that Scopa can do to force Andre de Ruyter to name the names, the people that he says is behind the sabotage and corruption at Eskom?
Well, short of him appearing before the committee on the basis of a subpoena, where he will be forced to take an oath and obliged to answer every question, there is no way. But I can tell you that there is a simpler, much, much simpler way, to start unraveling these things. If you look at the report of the Auditor General, it has instances of irregular expenditure, of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. During my tenure, we would urge or would call on the entity to supply us with all the contracts that constitute irregular expenditure. And then we'll go through each one of them and say, on this contract, which company benefited from this? Who were the people in the bid adjudication committee? Who signed it off? In that way, you are able to put faces to cases, but to just say there were instances of irregular expenditure, there were instances of fruitless expenditure, without starting to put names to acts, it does not assist us. And I don't think we should solely look at the Ruyter naming people for us to know who has been doing what, when we know currently Eskom is unable to count and tell how many instances of irregular expenditure does it have. That is why they were applying for that exemption, that they should not mention these instances in their financial statements. And for me, that is the most shocking thing I've ever heard, where a company cannot count and tell how many instances, because it is from these instances that you can drill down to which office, which manager, which official. And from there you can be able to, as Pravin says, connect the dots, so to speak.
Yeah. Which official and which individuals are to blame for the rot at Eskom? I suppose the question becomes, is the rot so deeply entrenched? Does it have such a stranglehold on this SOE that is so key to our economy and to all of our survival that it's going to be impossible to get down to it and to find the people responsible?
No, very true. You know, I once made a statement in the past that it appeared that some members of the majority party are using SOEs as milking cows. There's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of easy money being made by individuals. That's why I'm saying that if you can go to irregular expenditures and say, take each contract and say, who is this company? Who processed it? Who are the directors of these companies? It becomes very easy for us to follow up on the individuals. But I must tell you that the corruption that is in the SOEs and even departments is so embedded and is so widespread and it's so frightening. It's so shocking. You would imagine that people see it as their business, to be corrupt without any due consideration for the public good.
Wow. The business of corruption. Themba Godi, let me thank you for your time this morning. The former Scopa chairperson, giving us some insight there, as Scopa may well be asking the former group CEO of Eskom under Ruyter to come and appear before the committee again.